Hey, what's up guys, Mikey here. It's the end of the year, and I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of myself. This year I've been able to accomplish pretty much all the New Year's resolutions I set out to do, which is pretty much more than I can say for, well, pretty much every other year of my life. Everything from building something new, to hating on Apple more, to failing to pick up girls again, to finishing SpongeBob Season 3, to... The only thing that's left is to find the true meaning of Christmas. Well, that's going to be easy because I already have a lead on that one. Last year, I prematurely ate all my chocolate before Christmas Day, so Christmas that year was a little bit of a letdown. And ever since, I learned not to rely solely on chocolate for a good Christmas, so I know that chocolate is not the true meaning of Christmas. Back in 2002, Nickelodeon had some Christmas shorts called Merry Nickmas featuring most of their iconic animated characters at that time. They parodied a lot of classic Christmas specials or songs. Plankton's Holiday Hits was the right way to advertise a Christmas album, How the You-Know-Who Stole You-Know-What was a parody of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and a Chuckie Finster Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, Winter Solstice is the short where Chuckie Finster wants to find out what Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice are all about. This one is a parody of the 1965 special, A Charlie Brown Christmas, and I'd argue out of all the Merry Nickmas shorts, this one is the most blatant ripoff of what it's parodying compared to all the others. When I saw this as a kid, I could tell it was a ripoff, and I could tell it was of Charlie Brown, but I had never seen that special when I was that age. Everybody else knew what it was, so I pretty much knew about Charlie Brown through osmosis at the time. Even with something like Patrick the Snowman being a blatant ripoff of Frosty the Snowman, I'd argue there was still more to that one. Because there, Jimmy and his friends wanted to get rid of Patrick when he overstayed his welcome. Just like everybody when the Patrick Star Show became a thing. While all the children loved Frosty and wanted him around, Plankton singing his holiday hits is still pretty silly, but also very memorable, and Angelica stealing chocolate and not caring about it gives it a whiplash ending. The Chuckie Finster Christmas is the biggest rip-off I've talked about with these Merry Nickmas shorts yet. But that doesn't mean I hate it, not at all. Like Grinchelica, Chuckie Finster Christmas focuses on the Rugrats compared to SpongeBob, and this would be the only Merry Nickmas short without SpongeBob characters if they didn't shoehorn in the Dork Krabby Mint Patty segment at the end. Like I said, I was a much bigger fan of Rugrats before I became as obsessed with SpongeBob as I am now. I was very excited when this came on as a kid because I loved the Rugrats, and those were the only characters featured here aside from Mr. Krabs in the very end. And I think this was another one I saw quite a bit, and I really liked it whenever it came on. It's roughly the same length as Grinchelica, and those were the two shorts that prioritized Rugrats over SpongeBob, something Nickelodeon clearly lost the desire to do after the 2000s were over. Even though it released in 2002, I saw this for the first time much later, and I remember learning about Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwaanza traditions in grade school around that time. And I think because that's what Chuckie was talking about in this short was something else that made me connect with this one a lot at the time. Additionally, I also remember the snowfall followed by the babies dancing, Chuckie yelling out of frustration, and the Dork Krabby Mint Patty sponsorship at the end. So in order for me to understand the true meaning of Christmas, let's watch this short to see if I have an answer. So the short starts up and some of the Rugrats babies are ice skating with Spike the dog as Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice are coming up fast. Tommy and Chuckie are walking out in the snow, but Chuckie is unhappy because he doesn't feel the spirit of Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice. As he's talking, they get buried in the snow, and then we see the babies dancing like the Peanuts. Chuckie comes in with their decorations, still wanting to know the true meaning of Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice. The first three I learned about in elementary school, but the last one, not so much. Tommy explained the true meaning of Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice by quoting the Bible, and Angelica called him an absolute blockhead, saying that it's all about the presents. The babies rejoiced and hummed Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and we cut to a YouTube sponsorship where Mr. Krabs promotes the Dork Krabby Mint Patty, and the short ends. So that was a Chuckie Finster Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and Winter Solstice, and I do really like that one. Out of all the Merry Nickmas shorts I covered so far, this was the last 2D animated one. Patrick the Snowman was very low budget CGI, and Holiday Hits and Grinchelica were the other 2D animated ones. I think here, the animation is still great, but Grinchelica was the best of the 2D animated ones in my opinion. Chuckie Finster Christmas is still better animated than Plankton's Holiday Hits, but that's only because Holiday Hits is the least interesting visually. That one is still good, but not as visually distinct compared to the other two 2D animated ones. I love how blatantly this rips off Charlie Brown Christmas. I didn't watch that special until recently, and when I did, I spotted everything that the short parodied. Like the ice skating opening, Chuckie being sad, the characters doing the dance moves, the dog mimicking the mean girl, the true meaning of Christmas speech, the ending where they all hum, etc. But I still like the attention to detail here. This one may have the least identity of its own because of how far into Charlie Brown territory it leans, but oddly enough, it still gives it a lot of character. It allows the animators to slip in some good details and makes the writers think outside the box to decide which character would suit which role best. And now that I brought that up, the characters taking on the roles here felt appropriate. Angelica being Lucy was perfect, Chuckie Finster also acting like Charlie Brown was fitting, even though both of their names both start with the CH, and Tommy being Linus giving the speech also worked, since Tommy is the youngest of the Rugrats babies who actually talked, since Dill didn't talk as much as the others ever since he was introduced. I don't think this short would work as well if they chose Phil to take on Charlie Brown's role, or Lil to be Lucy, for example. According to the storyboards, they actually plan to make the Rugrats characters look like Peanuts characters. I can't really show it off because the link on the wiki page redirects me to something that probably just gave my computer a virus. So while I can't see what the characters would have looked like, I will say that I do like that they kept them in their normal designs. Tommy and Angelica probably would have been okay enough, but I don't want to imagine Chuckie looking like Charlie Brown. Speaking of the characters, I like the attention to detail here and how every major baby from the Rugrats is featured in this short. They could have just used Tommy, Chuckie, Phil, Lil, Angelica, and Spike because they were all there at the very beginning of the series, and that would have worked since Tommy, Chuckie, and Angelica were the only ones that had their own lines, and there were only 2 lines that were said by every character.
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, winter solstice time is here! Yay! Presents! Happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, and winter solstice, Chuckie Finster!
But no, they also used Susie, Dill, and Kimmy in this short. Now yes, all 3 of them were established characters by 2002, but the fact they went the extra mile and added all of them here is great and makes me feel satisfied. Looking back on it now, the snowfall that buried Tommy and Chuckie kinda reminded me of a snowfall that occurred in early middle school for me. The snow pile ended up being taller than me at the time when it was all over, and there was so much snow that I missed school for almost a whole week. But I had to go to school on President's Day though. But that's still something that triggered my neurons the last time I watched this. And like I said, since I learned about Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwaanza in school around the time I saw the short more often, that just makes it even neater to look back on. The only things I do kind of question are, 1. I don't know why Chuckie called Tommy Thomas in this scene.
No, I think there must be something wrong with me, Thomas.
Sure, Thomas could have been Tommy's birth name in the Rugrats show, but I don't think Tommy was ever referred to as Thomas in the series, and I don't think this was a reference to anything from Charlie Brown Christmas. And 2, I wish the music that played here sounded more like the iconic Peanuts Christmas piano music. Instead, it's more of a jazzy version of Jingle Bells, and while that's nice, I think it would have been cooler if they had a song that sounded similar to the piano tune. Even though the babies dance like the Peanut characters here, the music used here didn't really make it as convincing as this could have been to me. But that's pretty much it. Now, of course, the original Charlie Brown has been referenced and parodied countless times in so many media over the years. Off the top of my head, the only references I can place right here, right now, are the scene from the Penguins of Madagascar Christmas special, The All-Nighter Before Christmas, where Mort talks about a puny tree like the one from Charlie Brown, and SpongeBob episode 470, Plankton's Old Chum from season 12, where SpongeBob gave a true meaning of Chum Day speech that ripped off Linus's speech about Christmas. I know there's plenty more, but these are the only ones I can think of at this moment. But this one is the most blatant one I've seen yet. And it was still good. The first time I watched the Charlie Brown Christmas, I was just smiling the whole time seeing everything that was referenced in everything else that I watched growing up. But despite this still being supplementary material, the characters felt more in character here than sometimes some SpongeBob characters were in the main show. A good example is with SpongeBob episode 579, Snow Yellow and the Seven Jellies from season 14, which was a parody of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But the SpongeBob characters weren't even referred to by their actual names here, so I don't even know if this episode is canon or not. I know this probably wasn't the best comparison since this was a SpongeBob episode and not Rugrats, but you get my point. But speaking of which, I also found the Dork Krabby Mint Patty sponsorship to be kind of humorous. Back in the day, TV shows often had to make up fake product names so they wouldn't have to pay a franchising fee or something like that. This was especially prevalent in Dan Schneider live action shows, where things like Mountain Dew was referred to as Mountain Fizz, and Apple products were referred to as Pear products, and they still look cooler than stinky old Apple products these days. Dork Krabby Mint Patty was a parody of York Peppermint Patty, and this was the first fake product name I saw on Nickelodeon period when I was growing up. Drake and Josh wasn't out at the time, and on SpongeBob they just take real life names and make them more underwater sounding, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich being referred to as a peanut butter and jellyfish jelly sandwich. But this was the first fake product that parodied a real product that I even remembered seeing on Nickelodeon as a kid. And fun fact, I actually never tried York patties before. I was more of a Kit Kat guy, but I decided, why not? I'll finally try a York peppermint patty now. Not bad. Reminds me of some other mint chocolate I've had before. But this still isn't enough to get me to rely on chocolate for a good Christmas again. This is a fun short. I really like how far it goes when parodying Charlie Brown, and there's some fun details sprinkled throughout. I really miss these days when Nickelodeon was just fun with their marketing and they brought all their iconic animated characters together just for a little promo that really stuck with you for all these years. And watching this nowadays really reminds me about a lot of stuff from my childhood, like the mega snowfall I had that closed school for almost a week, and just learning about these holidays in general when I was in grade school. So overall, this is probably the most sentimental short out of all the 6 that exist for me personally, and I have special values about this one compared to what I said about all the other ones I talked about so far. But school didn't really teach me about winter solstice, so that's an extra point for this short too. A Chuckie Finster Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwaanza, Winter Solstice is a fun short. The Charlie Brown direction this one takes definitely leads to some neat references and dialogue, and it helps people who aren't too familiar with Charlie Brown to get at least a little taste of what it's like. Which goes to show how timeless both the Peanuts and the Rugrats are when done right. Because this was wrong. And even if it did introduce the world to YouTube sponsorships. And after watching all that, I think I finally learned what the true meaning of Christmas is ever since I made it a New Year's resolution this year. Ever since the day our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ came into this world, everything changed for the better. No matter people's background, skin color, or religious beliefs, God watches over us all and has a plan for every human being on this planet. The greatest joy anybody could ever experience, and it wouldn't be possible without Him. And it's the time of year for joy, peace on earth, and goodwill towards all. Even if some people don't know what that last sentence even means.